The world is warming at an alarming pace. Extreme weather, shrinking glaciers, and raging wildfires are no longer distant warnings. They are our daily reality. And much of this crisis stems from one overlooked source, our soil. Agriculture, the very act of feeding humanity, is a major driver of greenhouse gas emissions, releasing carbon into the atmosphere through deforestation, intensive tillage, and chemical fertilizers. But what if the same soil that has contributed to climate change could also be its solution? This is the radical promise of carbon farming. Across the globe, farmers and land stewards are experimenting with ways to draw carbon from the air and lock it safely underground. From regenerating pasturelands to planting cover crops, from agroforestry to biochar, these practices are rewriting the story of agriculture, transforming it from a climate problem into a climate solution. Yet carbon farming is not just about science, it is about hope, innovation, and the power of human stewardship. Imagine a world where every field, orchard, and pasture is actively cooling the planet. A world where farming becomes a climate ally, feeding communities while repairing ecosystems. This vision may seem ambitious, but it is no longer out of reach. Farmers from South America to Africa, North America to Asia, are proving that soil can be both productive and restorative. In this documentary, we will travel from the dusty plains of the Midwest to the lush forests of the Amazon, meeting the people who are pioneering a revolution beneath our feet. We will uncover the science behind carbon sequestration, explore the economic opportunities, and confront the controversies that challenge this movement. Most importantly, we will witness the quiet power of soil, the foundation of life, as it holds the potential to heal the planet. The question remains, can the soil beneath our feet save us? This journey will show that the answer may lie not in grand technologies, but in the humble, living earth beneath our boots. To understand carbon farming, we first need to understand the carbon cycle, nature's invisible engine that drives life on Earth. Carbon exists everywhere in the air we breathe, the water we drink, the plants we eat, and the soil beneath our feet. It cycles constantly between the atmosphere, living organisms, oceans, and the ground. In a healthy ecosystem, carbon is balanced. Plants absorb CO2 from the atmosphere through photosynthesis, converting it into energy and building biomass, leaves, stems, roots. Some of that carbon returns to the soil when plants die or shed leaves, feeding microbes and enriching the earth. Animals eat plants, returning carbon through respiration and waste. Meanwhile, oceans absorb excess CO2, acting as massive carbon reservoirs. But human activity has disrupted this delicate system. Deforestation, intensive agriculture, and industrial emissions have flooded the atmosphere with carbon faster than nature can absorb it. Fertile soils are depleted, forests vanish, and the planet warms. This is where carbon farming comes in. By restoring soil health and vegetation, farmers can accelerate the natural carbon cycle. Techniques like cover cropping, composting, no-till farming, rotational grazing, and agroforestry increase the amount of carbon stored in soil and plants. Healthy soils become living sponges, not only holding water and nutrients, but also acting as a vital carbon sink. Through carbon farming, every farm, orchard, and pasture can become part of the climate solution. Soil that was once releasing carbon can start pulling it from the air, reducing greenhouse gas concentrations. Every hectare managed thoughtfully contributes to stabilizing the climate while producing food, supporting biodiversity, and improving water retention. This chapter explores how carbon moves through the Earth systems, the ways human activity disrupts it, and how regenerative practices restore balance. Visualizing these processes helps us see that the solution may not lie in expensive technology or massive infrastructure. It lies in nurturing the soil beneath our feet. Understanding the carbon cycle is the first step toward a future where agriculture supports, rather than undermines, the planet's climate. Farming feeds the world, but it also fuels climate change. Agriculture contributes nearly a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions, making it one of the largest human-driven sources of carbon in the atmosphere. From plowing fields and applying synthetic fertilizers to raising livestock and clearing forests, the systems that feed us are also releasing vast amounts of CO2, methane, and nitrous oxides. Plowing and tilling soil expose carbon that has been stored for decades, releasing it into the air. Synthetic fertilizers, while boosting yields, emit nitrous oxide, a greenhouse gas 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Livestock produce methane through digestion, and large-scale deforestation for farmland removes critical carbon sinks while accelerating soil degradation. The consequences are visible everywhere: eroded soils, depleted nutrients, water scarcity, and collapsing ecosystems. Regions once rich in fertility struggle with desertification, while floods and storms erode farmland and wash away topsoils. Conventional agriculture, designed for maximum short-term yield, often undermines the long-term health of the lands, creating a vicious cycle of degradation and emissions. Yet acknowledging the problem also points the way forwards. Farmers and scientists increasingly understand that the same land causing emissions can also store carbon and restore ecosystems. The challenge is rethinking how we grow food, not just what we grow. Regenerative methods like cover cropping, rotational grazing, compost application, and no-till farming can reverse damage, sequester carbon, and produce resilient, healthy soils. This chapter delves into the dark side of modern farming. By exploring the scale and mechanisms of emissions, from nitrogen fertilizers to deforestation, we understand why carbon farming matters. Only by confronting agriculture's climate footprint can we appreciate the potential of solutions that heal the soil and reduce greenhouse gases. Farming does not have to be the problem. With conscious practices, the fields that once contributed to climate chaos can become active allies in cooling the planet. But to get there, we must first see the impact clearly and face the scale of the challenge.
Soil is alive. Beneath every step we take lies an invisible world, a network of roots, fungi, and microbes working together like nature's underground internet. Yet, decades of industrial farming have broken this connection. Our soils are thinning, our fields eroding, and our food systems becoming fragile. But there is another way, a way of farming that doesn't just take from the land, but gives back. This is regenerative agriculture. A regenerative agriculture is more than a method. It's a mindset. Instead of exhausting the soil with chemicals and heavy tilling, it works with nature's rhythms. It restores balance by mimicking natural ecosystems. It builds fertility, captures carbon, and brings life back to the land. At its core, regenerative farming follows 5 guiding principles. Not rigid rules, but adaptable practices that any farmer, anywhere in the world, can apply. The first principle: minimize soil disturbance. For generations, plowing and tilling were seen as signs of progress. But every time the soil is turned, its structure collapses, carbon escapes into the atmosphere, and erosion takes hold. Regenerative farmers are breaking that cycle. By reducing tillage or avoiding it altogether, they protect the delicate underground web of life. The result: stronger soils, better water retention, and fields that can withstand drought and floods. Less disturbance means more resilience. The second principle: keep the soil covered. Bare ground is vulnerable. Under the hot sun it dries out. With heavy rains, it washes away. But a soil covered with crop residues, mulch, or living plants is shielded, like a blanket of protection. Cover keeps moisture in, buffers temperature, and prevents erosion. It also feeds earthworms and microbes, keeping the underground world thriving. When soil is covered, it's alive. When it's bare, it dies. The third principle: increase plant diversity. Modern farming often relies on monocultures, vast fields of a single crop. Efficient, perhaps, but fragile. In nature, diversity is strength. Each plant feeds the soil in its own way, attracting different microbes and insects. Regenerative farms embrace this lesson. They rotate crops, intercrop species, and plant wildflowers for pollinators. This diversity brings balance, reducing pests, improving soil health, and creating resilience in the face of change. The fourth principle: maintain living roots in the soil year-round. Roots do more than hold soil together. Through photosynthesis, plants draw carbon from the air and deliver it underground, feeding the soil food web. But when fields lie fallow, that process stops. The soil starves. By planting perennials, winter crops, or off-season covers, farmers keep roots alive in the soil all year. Living roots mean a constant cycle of nourishment and soils that grow richer with time. The fifth principle: integrate livestock wisely. For thousands of years, plants and animals shaped the land together. Herds grazed, fertilized, and moved on, renewing the grasslands as they went. Regenerative farmers recreate that cycle through rotational grazing. Cattle, sheep, or chickens are moved across pastures in timed rotations. Their manure fertilizes the soil, their hooves stimulate plant regrowth, and the land rests before animals return. Done well, livestock aren't a burden to the land. They're a vital partner in regeneration. Regenerative agriculture isn't a formula. It's a philosophy, a commitment to work with nature, not against it. By minimizing disturbance, keeping soils covered, planting diverse crops, maintaining living roots, and integrating animals, farmers are restoring balance. They're healing the land, capturing carbon, and securing the future of food. Because when we regenerate the soil, we regenerate life itself. This is the soil story. If you believe in the power of soil to change our world, join us. Subscribe, share this film, and be part of the movement to regenerate our future.
Smallholder communities restore degraded land with agroforestry, boosting food security while cooling the climates. Indigenous land stewardship in Australia and South America demonstrates centuries-old methods that sequester carbon naturally and sustainably. Regenerative agriculture is not just about carbon, it is about resilience. Healthy soils retain water, reduce drought vulnerability, and produce more nutritious crops. Landscapes become more biodiverse, farms more profitable, and communities more food secure. In this chapter, we will see these practices in action, meet the farmers implementing them, and understand how simple changes in land management can yield extraordinary environmental benefits. By the end, viewers will understand that carbon farming is not a distant idea or an abstract theory. It is a practical, scalable, and hopeful approach that reconnects people with the land, demonstrating that agriculture can heal both soil and climate. As the world seeks solutions to climate change, carbon markets have emerged as a financial tool to incentivize soil carbon sequestration. Farmers can now earn income by demonstrating that their regenerative practices remove CO2 from the atmosphere and store it in soil or vegetation. What was once purely an ecological endeavor has become an economic opportunity, potentially transforming the way we value land and agriculture. Carbon credits work by quantifying the amount of CO2 absorbed and then selling it to corporations or governments looking to offset emissions. A farm that plants cover crops, practices no-till farming, or restores pastures can generate tradable carbon credits. This has sparked interest from investors, agribusinesses, and tech companies, creating a global market where soil becomes both a climate tool and a commodity. However, the carbon market is not without challenges. Critics warn of greenwashing, where companies purchase offsets without reducing their own emissions. Measurement and verification of soil carbon can be complex. Soil varies by region, climate, and management, and carbon stored today can be released tomorrow if practices change. Smallholder and indigenous farmers often face barriers to entry, risking exclusion from the financial benefits of their labor and knowledge. Despite these hurdles, success stories exist. Programs in North and South America, Africa, and Asia are showing that careful monitoring, certifications, and fair pricing can reward farmers for their climate-friendly practices while creating additional income streams. Partnerships between scientists, NGOs, and local communities ensure that carbon markets support both environmental and social equities. This chapter examines the rise of carbon trading, the mechanics behind carbon credits, and the controversies that surround the systems. We will meet farmers who have benefited, investors who see potential, and critics who demand accountabilities. The story of carbon markets is one of both promise and caution, a new frontier where climate action intersects with economics. By understanding the opportunities and pitfalls of this rapidly growing market, viewers will see that the path to scaling carbon farming requires not just science and practice, but policy, transparency, and ethical frameworks that ensure the land, and the people who care for it, benefit. Carbon farming is full of promise, but it is not without debates. While many scientists and farmers celebrate its potential to sequester atmospheric carbon, others urge caution. Soil is a living, dynamic system, and its ability to hold carbon long-term can vary widely depending on climate, soil type, management practices, and unexpected events like drought or fire. One concern is permanence. Carbon stored in soil can be released back into the atmosphere if the land is tilled, overgrazed, or subjected to extreme weather. Critics argue that without careful management, the benefits of carbon farming could be temporary. This raises the questions: can soil really act as a reliable, long-term carbon sink at the scale needed to significantly impact global climates? Measurement and verification are also challenging. Soil carbon is invisible, and accurate monitoring requires advanced tools, repeated testing, and sophisticated modeling. Variability across fields, seasons, and regions makes standardization difficult. Carbon markets, which depend on quantifiable offsets, must address these uncertainties to maintain credibility. Despite these challenges, evidence from research trials and long-term projects shows that managed practices can indeed sequester significant carbon while improving soil health, water retention, and biodiversity. Scientists continue to study optimal practices, looking for strategies that maximize carbon storage and minimize risks. This chapter explores the debate through the ground examples and expert interviews. We meet soil scientists who are developing methods to measure and model carbon accurately, and farmers who share firsthand experiences of both success and setbacks. The goal is not to dismiss carbon farming, but to understand its limits, potential, and the conditions under which it works best. Skepticism plays an important role. It ensures that carbon farming strategies are based on rigorous science, realistic expectations, and careful stewardship. By navigating this complex landscape, viewers will gain a nuanced understanding. Carbon farming is not a silver bullet, but a promising, practical tool when applied thoughtfully, scientifically, and responsibly. Ultimately, this chapter shows that climate solutions must be grounded in both hope and realism. Soil has immense potentials, but it is a living system that requires knowledge, patience, and respect. Policy power and access behind every farming practice and carbon credit lies a deeper question: who controls the future of soil? Policies, powers, and access shape whether carbon farming becomes a tool for global good or just another system that benefits the powerful while leaving smallholders behind. Governments are racing to design carbon policies. Some provide subsidies or tax incentives for regenerative practices. Others build national carbon markets. Internationally, soil carbon is increasingly discussed in climate negotiations, where it could play a role in meeting emission reduction targets. But these decisions often unfold in political halls far removed from the fields themselves. Power imbalances raise serious concerns. Large agribusinesses and corporations are often best positioned to capitalize on carbon credits, while small-scale and indigenous farmers may lack the resources, land size, or technical expertise to participate. If carbon farming becomes another market dominated by the wealthy, the very communities most vulnerable to climate change could be excluded from its benefits. Land rights are another critical issue. In many regions, farmers do not legally own the land they cultivate, making it nearly impossible for them to claim carbon credits or receive compensation for their stewardships. This can spark conflicts over who has the right to sell the carbon stored in the soil: landowners, governments, or the farmers themselves. Yet there are opportunities for equity. Policies that prioritize inclusivity, such as community-based carbon projects, fair certification systems, and public investment in soil health, can ensure that carbon farming uplifts marginalized communities. Innovative programs in Africa, Latin America, and Asia show how collective ownership and cooperative models can help farmers share both risks and rewards. This chapter uncovers the politics of carbon farming, the battles over access, the negotiations over ownerships, and the struggles between corporate interests and grassroots movements. Viewers will see how power dynamics influence who benefits from this emerging system, and what policies are needed to ensure fairness. The lesson is clear: soil is not just a scientific or economic resource, it is also a matter of justice. Ensuring that carbon farming contributes to climate action requires policies that protect the vulnerable, empower the stewards of the land, and prevent exploitation. Only then can this revolution in soil truly serve the planet and all its peoples. A just soil future beneath our feet lies a world that has been quietly shaping human history for millennia. Soil has grown our foods, sustained civilizations, and recorded the rise and fall of societies. Now, in a time of planetary crisis, it may also hold the key to our survival. Carbon farming shows us that the ground we walk on is not just dirt. It is a living system, capable of healing itself and the climate if given the chance. From indigenous knowledge keepers to pioneering scientists, from smallholder farmers to global innovators, people around the world are proving that farming can be more than extraction. It can be regeneration. Yet this journey is not only about techniques or markets, it is about values. Will we treat soil as a commodity to be exploited, or as a living partner in the web of life? Will the benefits of carbon farming flow only to the wealthy and powerful, or will they be shared fairly with the communities who depend most on healthy land? The answers will define not only the future of agriculture, but also the future of our planet. We face choices about how we eat, how we grow, and how we govern the resources beneath us. These choices will determine whether soil becomes a bridge to resilience or a casualty of neglect. The vision is clear: fields, forests, and pastures that actively cool the earth. Farmers empowered as climate stewards. Communities nourished by food systems that restore rather than deplete. Policies that reward fairness and inclusivity. And a global recognition that soil is not an afterthought, but the foundation of life. This is the promise of a just soil future, a future where every act of farming is also an act of healing. As we close this journey, one question remains: will we rise to the challenge? If we choose stewardship over exploitation, collaboration over competition, and justice over inequality, then the soil beneath our feet can indeed help save us. The story is still being written, and it begins every time a seed is planted, a pasture is restored, or a farmer decides to work with the land instead of against it. The soil is waiting, The future is in our hands.